There's no doubt that the new monarchs of the United Kingdom are in their twilight years, so speculation has run rampant about what happens when they die. The title change of the Queen is clear.
The moment Charles draws his final breath, everything Camilla has ever wanted is going to be torn away from her completely. Within 24 hours, her life will take a turn so devastating that there is no coming back from it. William has been preparing for this moment for a very long time. The plans are already in motion, and he has made absolutely certain that when that day arrives, Camilla will feel every single bit of it. This is not just about titles or property. This is personal. This is Diana's revenge delivered through her son. Here are 20 things Camilla will lose the second William becomes king, and she is completely powerless to stop a single one of them. The title of Queen. The moment Charles draws his last breath, a legal clause activates in the Lord Chamberlain's office and the word Queen will be immediately removed from Camilla's name. She becomes Queen Dowager, which is the palace's elegant way of saying the widow who no longer belongs. In 1996, Diana received a letter from that same Lord Chamberlain's office informing her that the palace was removing her HRH designation. Diana begged to keep it. She was told no. She described the moment as being stripped naked in public. The institution that humiliated Diana will send Camilla the same kind of letter. Camilla fought 30 years for the word queen. She endured being called the most hated woman in Britain for it. She sat in Westminster Abbey and had a crown placed on her head for it. And William, with one constitutional clause and zero emotion, will take it back. Diana lost her title while alive. Camilla loses hers the second she becomes a widow. The palace gives, the palace takes. It was never hers to keep. Highgrove, the house where Diana wept. Diana described Highgrove as a house that entered her bones. She sat in those rooms knowing Charles was on the phone with Camilla in the next room. Camilla made sure that the staff members were more loyal to her, the mistress, than to the princess. Diana once told a friend she felt like a ghost in her own home. William grew up watching his mother deteriorate inside those walls. When Charles dies, William becomes the landlord of Highgrove overnight. The Duchy of Cornwall transfers instantly, and William has already decided what happens next. He is converting Highgrove into a public, sustainable farming education center. The house where Diana's marriage was destroyed will be opened to the public. School groups will walk those gardens. Strangers will stand in those rooms. Camilla will be asked to leave. William never needs to say Diana's name in the planning meetings. He never needs to explain his motivation to anyone. He just signs the conversion documents and watches the locks change. That is what 30 years of patience looks like. Clarence house, the keys change hands. Camilla walked into Clarence house in 2005 as though she had always belonged there. Over 20 years she settled into it completely. Yet she does not own a single brick of it. Clarence House is the official residence of the Prince of Wales. The moment William becomes king, it passes to Prince George as the heir. There is no provision for a dowager queen anywhere in those deeds. William's team will send a letter through the correct channels. It will be polite. It will offer grace and favor accommodation, perhaps a cottage on Sandringham. But embedded inside that polite letter will be an instruction that Diana would have recognized immediately. You are no longer the hostess. You are a guest. Diana spent her final years fighting for a dignified home base after being quietly pushed out of the official residences. The palace managed her housing situation with the same cold administrative efficiency it manages everything. Camilla dismissed Diana's displacement without a second thought. She will now discover what it actually feels like to open a letter and realize the address you have called home for 2 decades no longer belongs to you. The Cambridge lover's not tiara. Diana wore this tiara in photographs and the world fell completely in love with it. She looked ravishing in it. Because it's too heavy, Diana complained it gave her headaches. Yet she wore it anyway. Camilla mocked her for this. She had been caught saying he didn't quite fit Diana's head and the shape of her face. But when she finally became queen consort, she fought desperately to have it in her custody. Under Charles, Camilla was permitted to wear it. Every time she did, something in William hardened a little further. The second he becomes king, the borrowing stops. The tiara will be quietly recalled to the Tower of London with a routine administrative note. And then, at the first major state occasion of his reign, Queen Catherine will appear wearing it. That photograph will go around the world. Every person who remembers Diana in that tiara will feel something shift in their chest when they see Catherine wearing it. William knows this. He understands the power of a single image more precisely than any king before him. He watched his mother wield that power her entire life. Now he is wielding it for her. Her security detail. In 1997, after her divorce settlement, Diana lost her police protection. She told friends she felt exposed. She raised the alarm. Nobody listened. Months later, she was dead in a Paris tunnel, chased through the dark by cameras. Now William gets to decide what happens to Camilla's protection. She is not a working royal. She has no blood connection to the king. She has no automatic right to armed guards paid for by the state. William is expected to strip her elite detail down to the bare minimum, an alarm at her house, an occasional patrol. Her reduced status made real in the most personal way possible. William knows exactly what this looks like. He grew up with the story. The question is whether he does it anyway. Insiders say he will, because to William, Diana's story is not a warning. It is a blueprint. Diana was left without protection, and the worst happened. Camilla will be left without protection, and she will simply have to live with that fear every single day. That is the punishment, and William knows exactly what he is doing. Her press office, the weapon she used against Diana. Throughout the 1990s, Camilla's allies in the British press ran a quiet and effective campaign. Stories appeared that humanized her. Stories also appeared that painted Diana as unstable, hysterical, and difficult. The machine that rebuilt Camilla was built at least partly on the wreckage of Diana's reputation. Camilla sat over her morning tea reading those pieces out loud to her circle. They laughed. She never once told anyone in her presence to stop. Under William, Camilla's private press office will be folded into the main Buckingham Palace pool and redirected toward the new queen. She will lose the ability to plant stories, counter negative coverage, or manage her own narrative. For the first time in 30 years, she will have no control over what is written about her. The machine she used against Diana will be dismantled, and the British press, freed from any obligation to the new king's stepmother, will write about Camilla exactly as they feel. Without a press office to fight back, she will discover what it is to be truly undefended in the British media. Diana knew that feeling. She called it being hunted. Household staff. Picture the morning after the funeral. The palace is still. Flowers are still piling up at the gates, and Camilla wakes up to a silence in the hallway she has never heard before. Her staff are gone. The people who ran her life, managed her schedule, answered her calls, handled everything, for over a decade, reassigned overnight. No warning, no transition, just silence. Camilla has not booked her own appointment in 30 years. She has not made her own calls. She has not had to. Someone else always did it. That is simply how her life worked. Diana talked about this exact feeling after her divorce, the moment the palace machine switched off around her. She said it was like being handed a map and told you can no longer drive, now walk. She said it hit her in a way she never expected. Camilla will stand in that hallway, in that silence, and she will understand for the first time exactly what Diana was talking about. Charitable patronages. Camilla holds over 90 charitable patronages. They are the public scaffolding of her identity. Every headline that frames her as a woman of substance and compassion comes through this network. Without it, she has no reason for the public to remember she exists. Under William's slimmed-down monarchy review, these patronages will be redistributed. The ones that will cut deepest are the causes Diana herself championed. Domestic violence support, literacy programs, organizations working with society's most vulnerable people. These will be quietly handed to Queen Catherine's portfolio. There is no announcement, just a series of polite letters informing various charities of a change in royal patronage. And Camilla, who built a public identity on the appearance of compassion, will watch Diana's legacy absorb the causes she had been using as cover. The cruelty is in the quietness. Nobody accuses her of anything. The work simply moves on without her. The Koh-i-Noor crown. Camilla wore the modified Koh-i-Noor crown at her coronation. She sat in Westminster Abbey with one of the most historically loaded diamonds in the world on her head, and she knew what that image meant. It meant she had arrived completely. As Queen Dowager, she will never have a constitutional reason to wear a crown again. Royal etiquette is specific and unmerciful on this point. A widow in retreat does not wear a crown. She wears a veil. The Koh-i-Noor will be returned to the vault at the Tower of London, where it will wait in the dark for the next coronation. The next time that crown appears in public, it will rest on the head of a woman who carries none of Camilla's history and all of the grace William intends to restore to the institution. Camilla had her moment in that abbey. She felt what it was to sit inside that building as Queen of England with a crown on her head. William cannot take the memory away, but he can ensure it is the last memory of its kind she ever has. Secret documents Charles, built to protect her. Charles knew his son. He knew what was coming. He has reportedly constructed a series of legal stipulations designed to protect Camilla after his death. A lifetime tenancy at Clarence house, a guaranteed percentage of the privy purse. Documents that were his final act of love for the woman he chose over his marriage, over his son's peace of mind. Constitutional experts have concluded they are largely unenforceable under a new sovereign. William's legal team identified every loophole. And William has framed his counter-strategy not as revenge, but as modernization. By converting Clarence House to public access for carbon-neutral goals, he bypasses Charles's wishes without appearing vindictive. To the world, it looks like a visionary king opening up the royal estate. To Camilla, it is the sound of the locks being changed. A dying man built a shield around the woman he loved. His own son is dismantling it brick by brick. Charles likely knew the documents might not hold. He built them anyway because he had to try. That is the saddest part of this entire story. Charles tried. And William is better at this than Charles ever was. Her allies in the aristocracy. For 20 years, a specific network of aristocrats, columnists, and social gatekeepers worked to make Camilla acceptable. They invited her to the right parties. They published the right pieces. Without them, Camilla's rehabilitation does not happen. She is simply the mistress, permanently. Aristocrats are pragmatists above everything else. The moment power shifts to William and Catherine, these allies will realign toward the new court with the practiced efficiency of people who have always known where their interests lie. Being seen as too close to the Dowager Queen risks being interpreted as a slight against the king. So the invitations will quietly stop. The shooting weekends, the gallery galas, the private boxes at Ascot. Nothing dramatic. Just a total withdrawal of the social oxygen she has been breathing for 2 decades. Diana's circle abandoned her the same way when the palace turned against her. Friends who had known her for years suddenly stopped calling. Diana called it disappearing in plain sight. Camilla will learn that the social world of the British aristocracy is not built on loyalty. It is built on proximity to power, and she is no longer close to any. Her control over the Diana narrative. For 30 years, the palace managed Diana carefully, nothing that reignited the public grief in ways that threatened Camilla's acceptance. Charles needed this. He needed the world to move on. He needed Diana contained. William does not need any of that. Under King William V, the dam breaks. The Diana Memorial will be revitalized. New charitable foundations will launch under his direct patronage, explicitly connected to Diana's unfinished work. The visual language of his reign will carry deliberate echoes of his mother. A watch she gave him, her jewelry on Catherine at state occasions, her portrait on the walls, her name in every speech about what the monarchy is for. Every image of Diana that floods back into public consciousness is an image that displaces Camilla without a single accusatory word being spoken. Not through aggression, through abundance. Diana everywhere means Camilla nowhere. Camilla spent decades helping to manage the volume of Diana's presence in the world. She understood that keeping Diana quiet was essential to her own survival. William has understood the same equation from the opposite direction his entire adult life, and now he controls the dial. Her identity as queen. This is the loss that cannot be quantified. Camilla endured 30 years of being called the most hated woman in Britain. She endured the death stares in the streets, the newspaper front pages, and the global contempt. She absorbed all of it, because at the end of it, she could see the destination. Queen, the word that would retroactively justify everything. When Charles was crowned, and that coronation crown came down onto her head in Westminster Abbey, she had arrived. The title was her answer to every person who had ever called her a homewrecker. She had won. The moment William becomes king, the armor dissolves. She is not queen, not even a princess. She is the widow of the previous king, a dowager, a remnant. Diana was stripped of her HRH while she was alive, in the full glare of public humiliation, and she never recovered the piece of herself that was taken that day. Camilla loses queen in a legal clause on the day she is already in mourning. The palace strips her while she is at her lowest. The same institution, the same cold efficiency. 30 years later, her place in the room where decisions are made. As queen consort, Camilla was proximate to power in the most direct way possible. She had access to the king's ear. She could shape decisions through a word over dinner. In the culture of the monarchy, that kind of access is everything. Under William, she will never be in that room again. William has made this clear through channels that require no explicit statement. She will be treated like a distant great aunt, present at weddings and funerals, seated at a lower rank, respected in public, invisible in the meetings that actually matter. The inner sanctum, where the future of the monarchy is decided, will proceed without her knowledge and presence. Diana was frozen out of those rooms during her marriage, made to feel like a visitor in her own institution. She once described the experience of being physically in the palace, but constitutionally irrelevant, as the loneliest feeling she had ever known. Camilla helped create that isolation for Diana. Now she will inherit it. The door that was shut in Diana's face will simply never open for Camilla at all. The whole royal jewelry box, well beyond the lover's knot, Camilla has had access to pieces from the late Queen Elizabeth's personal collection. The Delhi Durbar tiara, the Greville honeycomb tiara, historic chokers and brooches that the palace technically loaned to her as queen consort. The loans expire with the reign. Insiders suggest William has maintained a precise record of every piece currently in Camilla's possession. Methodically, the velvet cushions in the palace vaults will be quietly refilled. The jewels will be redirected to Catherine first, and eventually to Princess Charlotte, ensuring that the visual legacy of these pieces skips the Camilla era entirely. By the time Charlotte is old enough to wear them publicly, the association with Camilla will have been deliberately edited out of the story. The pieces will be described in terms of their original owners and their future bearers. The years they spent in Camilla's dressing room will be a gap in the official record that nobody fills in. Diana was denied access to certain pieces during her marriage, pieces that went to Camilla afterward. William knows exactly which ones. He has always known, and he has been waiting with extraordinary patience to put every single one of them back where they belong. Her financial security. Charles reportedly spent his final years trying to codify Camilla's financial future, a guaranteed percentage of the privy purse, private trust arrangements, legal structures built to survive his death. He knew William, and he tried to build a wall around her with paperwork. Constitutional experts have confirmed those arrangements are largely unenforceable under a new sovereign. Camilla will not be destitute. She has Ray Mill House, her private estate in Wiltshire purchased after her first divorce. She has personal wealth, but the gap between the financial infrastructure of a reigning queen and the private resources of a wealthy widow in the Wiltshire countryside is not a gap. It is a canyon. The staff funded through the sovereign grant will be withdrawn. The household budget will be severed. Diana, after her divorce settlement, was financially comfortable but institutionally abandoned. She had money. She had no support structure. She described the combination as being given a life raft and dropped into the middle of the ocean with no shore in sight. Camilla will have considerably more resources than Diana did in 1996. She will still learn what it means to be economically alone inside this institution for the first time. Diplomatic access. As Queen Consort, Camilla sat beside heads of state. She attended G7 summits. She hosted foreign royalty at Buckingham Palace. She occupied the seat that Diana had been frozen out of during the marriage and had to fight independently to reclaim in her final years. Diana built her global diplomatic profile through personal crusades conducted outside the palace's control. Angola, Bosnia, HIV hospitals in cities the palace had no interest in visiting. She became more powerful diplomatically as a divorced private citizen than she had been as Princess of Wales because the institution could no longer manage her. The palace found that terrifying. Now Catherine inherits the official seat. And Camilla discovers that without the title and the infrastructure, the international phone simply stops ringing. There are no more G7 invitations, no more state visit schedules, no more heads of state calling Clarence house. The world does not mourn the absence of a dowager queen at a summit. Camilla moves from the front row of global diplomacy to the quiet of Wiltshire without the world pausing for a single second to mark the change. Diana would have recognized the feeling of becoming suddenly, completely invisible to the institutions that once needed you. Her relevance to history. William's most sophisticated weapon is not legal or financial. It is historical. His reign will be deliberately framed as the continuation of a story that began with Diana, moving from Elizabeth II to Diana's legacy to William and Catherine. With the Carolean era acknowledged as transitional, and Camilla as unremarkable consort. She will have been queen. She will barely be remembered as one. The official narrative under William V will position her as a placeholder, the woman who stabilized a grieving king before the real story resumed. Every portrait commissioned, every documentary endorsed by the palace will carry Diana's name and Catherine's face. Camilla will exist in the footnotes. This is institutional gaslighting at its most refined. Nobody lies. The history is simply written in a way that makes her presence feel temporary and her absence feel inevitable. Diana spent years being erased from the story while she was still alive. William will ensure Camilla is erased from the story after she leaves it. The difference is that Diana's erasure failed. Every attempt to diminish her made her larger. Camilla's erasure will succeed, because William is the one doing it, and he learned from watching what happened to his mother exactly how it is done. Ray Mill, The Sound of Silence. There will come a specific afternoon, probably within the first year of William's reign, when Camilla sits in the garden of Ray Mill House and the world has genuinely moved on. The motorcades have stopped. The phone that once rang with calls from presidents is quiet. The news is playing Catherine's American tour, William's address to the United Nations, George at his first official engagement. The monarchy is alive and gleaming and moving forward at full speed. And it is doing so without a single glance backward toward Wiltshire. The woman who absorbed years of being Britain's most hated woman, who finally sat in Westminster Abbey with a crown on her head and believed she had survived everything. She is sitting in a garden in the English countryside, listening to the silence. The institution has finished with her. Diana described this silence in her final years as the world forgetting you were ever there. For Diana, that silence was cut short in a Paris tunnel. For Camilla, it will simply continue. Charles's protection. Everything in this list comes down to one truth. Camilla has been many things: a mistress, a villain in the public imagination, a rehabilitation project, a queen. But underneath all of it, she has been protected. Charles spent half a century fighting for her. He walked away from his marriage for her. He walked away from public love for her. He endured his son's pain for her. He built legal documents in his dying months trying to protect her from the inevitable. He was her wall against every scandal. Every moment the world turned against her, Charles was there. When he is gone, she will discover what Diana discovered in those years before Paris: that a woman without protection in this institution is simply exposed, stripped down to whatever she actually is beneath the titles and the borrowed homes. Diana knew this. She felt it every day of her final years. She felt it the night she sat on the edge of her bed and went completely still in a way her staff member said was harder to watch than tears. She was absorbing it. The way you survive something that cannot be fought. Camilla watched Diana go through all of it. She watched from the other side of the wall Charles built to protect her. And now the wall is gone. Charles is gone. And William, the boy who watched his mother cry in the house Charles shared with both of them, is king. Diana once said there were 3 people in her marriage. 2 of them are gone. One is the king. The third is sitting in a garden in Wiltshire in the quiet, waiting for a phone that will not ring.